Hi guys, here we go with another interview. Woohoo! And who do we have today but Robin Plum from New Zealand. Hi, Rob, how are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Jill. Thank you so much.
Well, we decided to do this interview total spur of the moment, and I thought it was 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in my head, and actually it was 3 o'clock, and you just said, let's do it. So thank you for being so accommodating. Now, Rob, of course, I know you because we did the Antonio Sangio and Alba Weinman hypnotherapy course together. And we sort of didn't really speak for a while. It was just like, yep, you were over there in Queensbury and I was in Wanaka. And wow, when I found out what you're actually doing, your toolbox is bigger than, what do they say? Bigger than I don't know what, bigger than Christmas. So
Bulging.
it's bulging. I don't know how you fit it all in. So go for it. You just let me know that list a few minutes ago of all the things in your toolbox, but tell the listeners what you do, all the tools in your toolbox, and what actually got you onto the road. So go for it.
Okay, well, I'll start with what got me onto the road in the first place, because then it'll show how everything ended up in the toolbox. So probably in my early 20s, dabbled, reading books and bits and pieces, was teaching meditation to kids. And then when I hit 30, I was diagnosed with a tumour and had an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old. And I was determined to do everything I possibly could to put myself in the best possible position. So I
Sorry to interrupt you. Where was the tumour?
In my head.
Oh, we're talking serious tumour here.
Yeah, they usually find it in autopsy. So they said that I was very lucky to have found it when they did. And, and I'm sure that spirit had a hand in that, because from there is where I really got plunged in.
Okay.
So in the process of trying to make sure I was on the best possible place I could be, I found a spiritualist group. So I was doing meditation. I did a year's course on spiritual development, which covered channeling, which covered all sorts of things right across the board. So it was a good foundation, and I loved it so much I stayed for another 3 years. So in the process of that, I learned channeling, automatic writing, great background for meditation. I did readings. I taught groups on sort of healing, lots of stuff. That was where my foundation was. And then from there, it just, once I got past the tumor, and a lot of self-work started. So why did I create this? And really got stuck into the going within and using the tools that I'd found to help myself in a better position than I was. So in the process of helping myself, I started helping others with hands-on healing, distance healing. I started working with crystals, doing healings through those. I got into Access Consciousness, which was a great place at the time, where I learned bars, I learned body work, I learned dealing with all sorts of things from a totally different angle.
But you talk about bars, I think of a chocolate bar. So what's bars?
Right. So bars, there are points on the head that correspond to aspects of your life. And so often when those blocks, there's blockages in those points, then corresponding points in your life will not be working to their best ability. So a good example, one bar would be money. So if you are having lots of issues with money, by working on those bars in that particular place, you can then unlock and free up some of the energy. It's a bit like defragging your computer.
So can you teach that?
I used to be able to teach it, but since then I've moved on and haven't kept teaching it, but I use it. So it was just, the toolbox was getting full.
Wow.
So yes, I can do it, but I used to teach it, but I let my teaching lapse.
Okay.
So apart from Access Consciousness, then I did with you the course for introspective hypnosis. Since then, I've been doing a lot more work on channeling. I'm writing every day. I'm doing verbals. I'm doing a YouTube channel, which I've just started. And I've been guided to start writing a book. So a lot of this stuff is probably only in the last year or so that everything seems to be really winding up to a point where it's no longer being small. It's about getting out and putting myself out there, which I think a lot of people think I've got nothing to offer, which was where I came from. Everyone knew something better than me. And and through my writings, they're going, no, that's not the case. So that's sort of where my toolbox is. I teach yoga, I do workshops, I do talks, I do healing sessions with people, I do hypnosis sessions with people. So when I do those sessions, I pull out the tools that are most appropriate for that person. So you never know, as you know yourself, where you will end up when you start a session. Because we're just the conduits. The person guides the session themselves. So you go where that person's ready to go.
Yeah, I always think that our guides and their guides are sort of like hovering.
Yeah.
And sort of guiding both of us so that it just goes perfectly where it's supposed to go.
And I often find that, little synchronicities where that, like I was thinking of you the other day and I must talk to Jill, and then out of the blue you ring today. So, and it's the same thing nothing's by chance. People turn up to see you when they're ready to see you, and the right person will turn up or the right facilitator will turn up. So, nothing's ever by chance.
Do you find that the clients that you get, they'll all come sort of like in a row, the same kind of person, and then the same kind of problems, and then suddenly those all disappear, and then you get another thread? I found that quite interesting. In the last 2 weeks, I've had quite a lot of scientific sort of doctors and GPs, urologists, psychiatrists, a neurologist, just suddenly.
No, I don't find that for me.
Oh, you don't?
No, I actually find that it's all different sorts of people turn up. And, you might go for a little while with no one and suddenly have 3 people in a row that are completely different, and why they're coming to see you is completely different too. So you can't go into a session going, oh, right, this person needs this, because if they come in for weight loss, the weight loss might not be the priority. The body will prioritize what needs doing. So
yeah. And Rob, that reminds me of a book that I read ages ago. I can't even remember who it was, whether it was Michael Keaton. No, what's his name? Dr. Life Between Lives. What's that guy's name?
Oh, John Newton.
John Newton.
Yeah.
And I don't know where that thing came from. And it spoke about hypnotizing this woman who had immense problems with weight. Even if she ate this much, she still just seemed to hold the weight. And they went straight into this past life where she was living in the ice cold parts of, say, what's it called, sort of like deep in Canada, where it gets cold, and a long time ago when they didn't have transport or anything. And her husband was a trapper, and she just had a brand new baby. And so he went out to trap something and bring the food back. And he never came back because he was killed by some wild animal. So she learned that you got to store food.
Yep. Yeah.
Because just in case there's not going to be enough. So when that memory was taken away from her, then she suddenly lost weight. So, we can't judge. You see, people, you can't judge because you have no idea what they're actually holding on to.
Oh, that is so right. And I think that's probably the biggest message that I've been getting lately is judgment. we need to not assume that we know what a person needs or that we need to fix them, because, it's our judgment that says they're broken and we don't know what their life path is. We really need to be coming from, instead of going, oh, that person is, in an abusive relationship, I need to fix it. But you don't know if that's not the soul contract that that person had, that when they learn the lesson, they will be able to move on. But we just go in and think we know better.
We're just holding the space for them.
That's exactly
right. We're not there
right.
to fix anything. We hold the space. They fix themselves.
Yep.
It just
And
unfolds.
if you get out of the judgment and into allowance, I probably had something happen very recently that really hit that home. I know with all the vaccination going on at the moment, and the world is very much in polarity. You're either right or you're wrong, you're left or you're right, you're sort of, for or against, which is a 3D energy, and it's the separation. It's about being not connected to source, and we are isolated. I mean, at the world at the moment, we are so isolated physically, but in that mental state, that polarity, we are going, right, well, it's this or it's that, and the situation was where someone very close to me was going to get the vaccine. And I had been sort of trying to say, oh, this is all the literature for and against, are you really, and I had to let go of the judgment. As soon as I stopped going, you know what, I know better than they do, the judgment went, and allowance, and it was almost as if a weight had been lifted, that it's not my choice.
But it's not your choice because it's not your incarnation.
No,
and you don't
that's
know why they're
exactly right.
choosing that.
Yep.
That
And
is
so as
actually
soon as
their choice.
Yes, and as soon as you let go of that attachment, that you need to, help them or guide them.
But you don't.
No, you don't. No.
Because you're saying then that you know more than their very own guide.
Yep.
I mean,
yep.
Everybody's got a guide.
Yeah. And we don't know the big picture.
Road.
Yeah, we do not know the big picture. I mean, you do not know if that person who dies in some horrible situation wasn't a catalyst for something. It's might have been their life purpose to die in that way, to become the turning point, the pivot for something better to happen. So you've really got to be in allowance for everything, and it's hard.
So Rob, how do you teach people to stop judging and to come from their hearts, so that we can elevate the energy field and expand?
Yeah. Well, 3D energy comes from the head. And if you're in the head, you're in that polarity, you're in that separation, you're in that judgment. And so you've got to come from the heart. So the heart is shifting your energy. 3D comes to 5D, where you function from the heart. So you literally have to take a breath and just imagine yourself dropping down into that heart space, and just take as many breaths as you need until you get out of the head. And then you need to start asking some questions. Questions take you within. If you're looking outside for the answers, you're functioning 3D. As soon as you start to go within for the answers, you've shifted that energy, and it then becomes, what do I know? What do I know about this that I didn't know I knew? And so if you can shift into that energy of being willing to give yourself space to really sort of just let that settle into you. It might be a few moments, it might be a word pop into your head, it might be something someone says, whatever it be, it might be enough for you to just shift that energy. So it's very hard when you're constantly bombarded by outside influences, the media, social media, friends, family, all of those outside influences that are constantly pushing you in a certain direction. You've got to let it go. You've got to sort of step out of that judgment, as in, what's the big picture here that I don't know, that they don't know.
Do you think that there is an addiction to social media?
I
The
think people
Facebooks
use it.
and the Instagrams and the YouTubes. Do you think that it's almost like an addiction?
I think the biggest problem is that if you look outside yourself for your answers, then you're always going to be looking for someone else's approval, somebody else's ticking, saying, yes, I like this, or somebody else giving you the cues that you need to follow. That people have lost their inner knowing. They think that somebody else knows better, that they've lost their sovereignty. They've lost that power. They've handed their power away and look to outside for validation. So, where's the self-esteem here when you feel that you don't know yourself?
So how do you build self-esteem for someone?
Questions again.
Where do you begin?
Yeah, so where do you begin is a great question. Is what do I know that I didn't know I knew? Is this person raising me up or dragging me down? If they're dragging you down, then, is it them trying to make themselves look bigger by making someone else look smaller? You've really got to go, what's right for me? So many people assume that they don't know. So when you change that and go, what do I know? You've reclaimed your power. You've shifted that outside to the inside. And once you reclaim your power and go, right, what's dragging me down? All right. So if I'm on social media all the time and I come away feeling worse than I did when I got on there, or Instagram, or
maybe
whatever.
Give it a break.
Give it a break, or even have a look at who's dragging you down and block them.
Yeah.
And step away from that, or look for somewhere else that's actually, going to be supporting you.
So let's then talk about, I think the self-esteem would be very strongly correlated with belief systems, do you think?
Yeah. And tricky beliefs are that in the first 7 years of our life, we are downloading the programs that are going to be helping us function in our society. So in that state, a child is in almost a hypnotic state, which is why imprinting is so easy on a child. So in those first 7 formative years, parents, peers, siblings, community are all putting these programs in place. Now, if you go back then, where did your parents get their beliefs from? The first 7 years of when they were younger. And it's literally going back through ancestral history. So, all right, what might have been important in the past, is it still important now? I can remember my mum used to say, you go into the toilets, into the cubicle, and the hooks on the back of your handbag? She would say, never hang your handbag over there. Someone can reach over and steal your handbag. And it was something that you just went, oh, okay. I've never had it happen. I don't even know of anyone who's had it happen. So why did I buy into that
And
belief?
Also the best one, when we were at school, don't sit on a toilet seat just after a boy is gone there because you might fall pregnant.
And how many beliefs are utter lies? They are things that are told to children to placate them, that, when they're asking questions, they're given an offhanded sort of answer because the parents think, oh, that's funny, but the kid takes it as gospel. The kid will then go, oh, that's how the world runs. And that's why often there are family histories where the abuse keeps going, because they're raised in that situation and that's how they believe the world functions. So if we look at our beliefs from a introspective point of view, is it true? Can I be sure it's 100% true? And if it's not, does it serve me? Why am I believing something that's not even mine in the first place? I've taken it on from someone else. So you can root out your beliefs. You can literally change them. So a belief gets locked into your system when three things happen. So the thought comes in, so someone will say something, you get an emotion attached to it, and then the circumstances sort of, you see what's happening around you and it locks that belief in. So it's not just someone saying something. You could have two children who are told that, they're useless. And if one child is in that situation where they're constantly told they're useless, they're reinforced by being that feeling of uselessness, they feel the emotions of others around them who feel that uselessness, they then perpetrate that and they believe that they are useless. But if you have a child who's told they're useless and they turn around and go, not likely, totally different situation, same words, but the child has not taken it on. It hasn't had that emotional attachment to lock it in. It hasn't had the situation to reinforce it. So, it really comes down to what's the self-esteem of the child in the first place that you are feeding them this information. A child who's raised in a positive situation, caring, loving, supporting, will always be given that sort of sense of self, where someone who's raised in the alternate position where it's not the best place to be raised in, supporting, nurturing, encouraging that self-esteem, that self-worth, then you can see the opposite sides of, of what can happen to a child. So even in utero, we pick up these emotions. If our mother in that last trimester was, in a financial state where she was all sorts of problems finances wise, the chemicals that she's pumping through her body are going to be stress hormones. The emotions that she's pumping through her body are going to be those same emotions that are not conducive. And the baby picks this up going, oh, these emotions go with these chemicals. And so when a similar situation comes up, the body reproduces because that's the pattern it believes is the way to respond to something. So beliefs can be hugely empowering or crippling. But the good thing is we can always change them. A belief is a choice. And if you choose to change the belief, you can change it.
So
you've got to be willing to change it.
Give somebody an example of how they can then change that.
All right. So to change a belief, you need three things.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to change. You have to recognize that you are the common element here, that you accepted this belief, and you have to recognize it's now. If you don't have those three things happening, then no matter how many affirmations, how much work you do, nothing's going to change. You've got to be willing to say, I created this, I can change it. And if you come from that point of view, rather than I'm a victim, I was raised in an abusive family and so that's why I'm this way, then you've handed your power away. You have become into the victim mentality. And so once you change from victim to empowered, but you know what? I might have been a victim then, but I'm no longer a victim now.
Rob, you've just reminded me so perfectly of something. When one of our sons was about 16, when they're like 15, 16 and they're going through that phase.
Yep.
And he said to me, you know what? I didn't ask to be born, but I'm here. Therefore, you owe me. You have to look after me. You have to do this. You have to do that. And I thought, whew, now's your chance. And this is even before I was doing hypnosis or anything. And I said to him, wow, you are so right and you are so wrong. He said, what are you talking about? I said, well, if that happened to you, that must have happened to me as well. But guess what? Here we are. So what you going to choose? Are you going to throw a pity party and say, poor me? Or are you going to get on with it? I said, you know the wonderful thing? You get to choose.
Yeah.
You can make yourself miserable and say, oh, I didn't want to be here and I didn't choose, and powerless me. Or you can do something about it. And he said to me, that's your problem. You've always got words for everything.
Yeah. And that is the tipping point, when people recognize they have a choice.
I handed it back.
Yep. And he was given the choice and didn't know what to do with it. So, you've got to be recognized that, something's got to change, and that change has got to come from me. And unless I'm willing to change,
but that child was the most fantastic person in my life, right? He came to teach me so much, because the other thing he said when he was little was, now when I think about it, he said, I don't like it when you put me in my room. I said, I never put you in your room. Yes, he said, you put me in my room all the time. I said, no. You put yourself in your room. You know what's acceptable behavior when we've got friends and family, or the way you treat your brother. And if you don't want to play a game, well, then you have decided you know the consequences. So you are actually putting yourself in the room. I said, so tell me, are you ready to come out of your room? So he took his power back. He said, no, I'm not.
Yeah. Kids are amazing. When we come into this world, I believe that in order for us to function on this plane, that the reason we have no memory of the wonderful things on the other side is, if you knew it all, you wouldn't be willing to, risk it all to learn. So by forgetting and sort of having to basically remember everything and find your way back out again, it's the best place to learn, and kids just have so much less baggage than adults, and are far more willing to be open to things. And particularly nowadays, there's just so many opportunities for children these days to have a voice and to access the things that, as a child, I certainly never got to access, and a lot of other people, the same situation. We've had to find our way.
So can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
What are your thoughts on adults discussing adult issues in front of their children?
I would say that depends on what it is. No children are the same. So, it's going to depend on the child. It's going to depend on the maturity of the child against what you're discussing. So by all means, if the child's ready to hear that conversation, then don't just let them eavesdrop, involve them in the conversation, get them asking questions, because often people will hear a conversation, but they've already got a point of view running in their head, and they only hear half of the conversation. Where children, if they're encouraged to ask questions, will come up with things that will make not only you think, but give them something to think about as well.
So I was told that the children that are coming through now, these current children from like birth to, say, let's say 15 years old, are the new teachers. That if you sit quietly with them, and if you do have a problem, you can say to the kid, what would you do in this situation? What do you feel about ABC? So a lot of children in the past were basically seen and not heard.
Yeah.
And now these children are having a voice, but they seem to be coming through with incredible wisdom.
Oh, totally. If you really think about some of the things that come out of children's mouths, you're gobsmacked. You sort of go, wow, where did that come from? Oh, wow, that's a really interesting, but you got to listen. And you don't just flip them off with a answer or something that's just, a half answer. If they're asking those sorts of questions or coming out with that information, then you need to be responding to them with and giving them the sort of the things they're asking for, and far more information than just assuming it's a child. They're just they're still a soul, they're still a sovereign being, they are just a smaller version. So what do they know that you don't know? Start asking some questions.
Yeah. So how about now speaking about something completely different? You spoke earlier about being in 3D and rather than 5D. And this is bandied about so often, like, oh, 3D, 5D. But a lot of people actually don't really know what it means. They don't even know what the D stands for.
No. And that's a great question. And I actually did a channel on that the other day. Because I had the same thing. A lot of people go 3D, 4D, 5D, and I'm going, all right, well, what's the difference between them? So the number is the frequency that you're functioning at. So when they say third dimension, you're just in a lower frequency. Fourth dimension, your frequency becomes higher. And then fifth dimension, you're functioning from a higher frequency. So that is all they're referring to. But currently, 3D would be seen as the current state of the physical world. So it's involved in separation from each other, as we talked about before. It's about being in the polarity of the right and the wrong.
This is water, it's not wine.
Go for it. Even if it was wine, it would be perfectly good. It's about being in judgment. It's about being in fear. It's about lack, limitation. The energy is denser, and that we forget that we are sovereign. We are God sparks. So 3D.
But people don't know what sovereign is, Rob.
All right.
Also, another thing that is said, oh, be sovereign, be sovereign. There's so many words that are being used.
Yeah.
But do you see what I mean?
I see.
Totally. Sorry, I interrupted you. I still want you to do 5D.
I'm actually I'm going to be doing a YouTube talk on this one. So we'll talk about it anyway. So sovereign, if you think of a sovereign state, it's independent. All right. A sovereign means it's self-contained. It's a sort of an essence that is in its own power.
Contained in self.
Contained in self. So that is my interpretation of sovereign. You ask 10 different people and you'll probably get 10 different answers. But that's my interpretation of sovereign, is I claim my own power. I have my own sort of inner spark, my God essence, and I claim that power as my own. So in the 3D, we don't. 3D, we are functioning outside. 3D comes from the mind. It's the thinking, it's the judging, it's the functioning from the denser energies.
So it's the fitting in.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Because, it's gender, it's black against white, it's men against women, it's all the polarities and the separations that keep us in the lower frequency. So once we start to shift out of that, it doesn't mean everyone shifts out at the same time. It means that when you recognize that you are able to transform yourself, you reclaim that power, is when you start to shift into a different frequency. You've now pulled that energy towards yourself and recognize that I can change.
So you've upgraded yourself. You've upgraded your thoughts as such.
Totally.
And you've changed your position within yourself.
Yep.
You've allowed more for yourself and others.
You recognize that you can heal, that you can have choices, that you can change, that you can work on yourself and change from where you are functioning into a different vibration, a higher thought vibration. All right. So you are now recognizing that I have the power to change me. So fourth dimension is when you've shifted out of that, it's out there. I am a victim. I am the result of the world around me, to I am able to do something about this. So I no longer have to be stuck in the situation I am. I can change it because I have the choice.
So they just gave me an image when you said that. So they showed me somebody just about to get on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
So they're grounded and they're in 3D. They're not going anywhere.
Yep.
They're waiting. 4D is in the transit lounge. They've flown a little bit and now they've got into their terminal where they're in the transit lounge before they get to their final destination. And 5D is when they've arrived. Woohoo, they said. We've arrived here. New place, interesting place to explore.
Yeah, we're grounded in the 3D. 4D is we're now starting to lose some of that denser energy. We're now shifting from those lower vibrations, those lower emotions, the fear, the despair, the lack in the bottom. We're now starting to move up through the frequencies. And as we move up through those frequencies, the vibration changes. And so in 4, we're transitioning up. We're moving up through it all. So most people are going to be flip-flopping between them. In certain things, you're functioning from 3 and then you'll go, oh, no, I can change that and function from 4. So we are not just going straight from one to the other. We move between them all the time. So once you start to recognize that you can change, moving into the 5th dimension, again, it's the same thing. You'll be working through something in 5th dimension, then you'll slide back to 3, but the more you start to function in one particular area, the more you stay there. So instead of doing 2 or 3 things in 4 and everything else is in 3, you're doing 2 or 3 things in 3 and everything else in 4. The vibration starts to move up. So when you get to the 5th dimension, the 5th dimension functions from the heart. You are now getting out of the head and you are now recognizing that we are not separate. We are all one. We are all God sparks. And I am an aspect of you. You are an aspect of me. We are all one. We are learning.
I don't get that, Rob.
No. So if you think of it as, all right, so if you wanted to learn a very complicated process and you have 10 people who are working on that same process with you. Now, one person might specialize in one particular area and then another person might specialize in another area. And in the combining of the 10 people, that then works out that, you get the problem solved. So it's the same thing. Consciousness is I'm learning my lessons, you're learning yours, but those all combine to, all right, the universe wants to get the experience through us. And by everyone doing their own thing, combines to a greater awareness. And if you have a look around the world at the moment, the world's shifting. There's a pivot point we've reached. People have got to the point where they've gone, no more. I'm not going to sit back and just be a passive voice, and this is when things starts to shift. People then go, I have the power to change something. And other people go, I want to change that too. And you'll find you almost have a congregation of people like-minded who get attracted. So the way showers, the people who are leading the way and the changes, people go, yes, that's what I want. They add to the vibration. And so the vibration starts to build and become big enough to shift and move everything. It's how we change as societies over the years. We've had massive pivot points. And this is another pivot point. We're shifting that vibration. So if we look at 5D, it's functioning from the unconditional love. Right? If you're loving, you're not judging. You've let go of that. Everyone else is less than me. I know more than them. Right and wrong. You've gone into allowance. You've gone into, everything is exactly as it's meant to be. Might be shit, but it's exactly as it's meant to be because there's a lesson in here for me.
So isn't trust the same thing as faith then?
Yes.
It doesn't say just stop doing.
No, it's about sort of knowing that there's a belief that there's a bigger picture. And that you don't know the big picture. As much as we all think we've got a handle on things, you do not know the big picture. You might know your little portion of the picture, but it's bigger than you. So how are you going to possibly know all of the details? Because you're only one cog in the wheel.
Now I've got to tell you something that was super, super, super exciting. And, talking about 3, 4, 5th dimension. So 2 or 3 days ago, after a session, they quickly showed me, and there I saw Fauci standing in front of me, Dr. Fauci. And next to Fauci was Judas Iscariot, Jesus's disciple, the baddie that dobbed in Jesus. So Judas was so maligned by so many, and Fauci's been so maligned by so many, but both of them have come with a mission. So without Judas dobbing in Jesus, we wouldn't have had the Christian story. We wouldn't have had the crucifixion. Maybe things would have been different. Who knows?
Totally.
But that was the story that was meant to play out. They were playing their parts. Fauci's playing his part. So they basically showed me the example of what happened when Judas did what he did and the incredible good that came from it.
Mm-hmm.
Fauci's playing his part, but people are now finding their voices. Whether it's pro or against, it doesn't matter. They're finding their voices. And so a new movement is coming through of consciousness, being self-aware. But I don't know, what do you think of that?
Well, let's use that as an example. All right, if you were functioning in 3D, you would be in the polarity of you either hate him or you love him, and it's his right or wrong. It's that separation thing. Now, if you shift into the 4D from there, you can go, but I can change something. What can I do with this that will change something? So, and if you're in the 5th dimension, you're in total allowance, where you're going, all right, he's there with a purpose, and everything is playing out exactly as it's meant to play out.
Yeah, and you start seeing the bigger picture. It starts revealing itself, and it gives you so much hope because you realize it's all perfect.
Yep, and if you let go of that judgment and be an allowance, then nothing's wrong. Nothing can be wrong because nothing's right either. It's just exactly as it should be.
But it's not saying you just roll over and say, it's okay, do whatever you like, because by one person's action and energy output, it's affecting our energy. And that is how we then react. And that's how you get that groundswell or whatever that then happens. But you can only look back once it's happened and go, that's how that works.
Hindsight. And you're right in that you sort of, that sometimes being in allowance, it's not doing anything. But sometimes it's going, what can I contribute to this that will be something for my higher self and something for the world?
Positive.
And so, And so whether that's sending out good vibes, whether that's rallying people to sort of go, no, not good enough, let's do something. It might just be sitting in your own energy and go, I'm not going to be affected by this, and if enough people go, not being affected by this, then the effect is no longer felt. It takes one person to change the world. I really believe that. It's a groundswell, whether you are someone who is just in your own home going, I'm holding energy that whatever is meant to be will happen, whether that's ignoring him or whether that's doing something to sort of contribute to the energy. Because, you've got to go, sometimes, well, all right, if I'm forcing against him, you've got him back into polarity again.
Yeah.
You've shipped back into 3D. So what is right for you,
And usually what's right for you is right for the collective, isn't it?
Yeah.
You've got to think of the greater for every, how would you like to be treated?
Yeah. Because if one person raises their frequency, then another person raises their frequency. And before you know it, it stacks up. And then the frequency is at that tipping point where things change. So, you never know the big picture. You really don't.
So explain to me, in your understanding, what do you think ascension is? The word ascension, to ascend.
Wow, that's probably one word that you would ask and get a million different answers. So for me, ascension would be moving my vibration up to reaching closer to where that God energy is. It may be that, ascension is like a set of stairs. So I'm down here on, I started out on step 1. I might be on step 20 now, but, ascension might be reaching 50. But, in the next lifetime that I might start on 50 and go up from there. So I don't think ascension is an endpoint as such, that it's not one of those, right, I've hit ascension and, and that's it, I'm ascended. Well, according to who? What do you know? What do you know?
I think ascension is like golf.
A good walk in the park.
No, I can't play golf, but I think, well, I don't know because I haven't really tried. But to me, ascension, when I speak to my golf friends, they say, man, golf is actually a game against yourself. You're trying to improve yourself all the time. So to me, ascension is golf, because you're trying to rise above situations, which is then the 5D, so that you're not the judging. So you're the more compassionate, the open-hearted, the understanding. So how do you know you've reached ascension? In little steps of different situations, when you're no longer reacting and you allow. That's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
As
and
you
which
say,
is pretty much,
that's
the 5D, when you're in total allowance, that no matter what happens around you, it's perfectly fine. It will not affect me. It'll hold my energy, and I will hold space, and whether that's required for what's needed, holding space, or whether that's action, it's about no longer being dragged down and stuck in that 3D.
So what do you do to protect yourself from those that are hurtful or negative? What do you do, Robin?
Well, if you're in allowance, you don't have to do anything. But if you sort of look at it for, all right, well, what's the lesson in this for me? What's my learning? So someone says something hurtful, something tears you down, someone does something that's sort of, against you. But instead of going to, poor me, I'm a victim, you go, wow, thanks for that lesson. What did I learn from this? And once you've learnt your lesson, you can go, see you later. I'm beyond that now. I don't need those lessons anymore.
You then do Tinder, swipe left, swipe right.
Well, or you just disconnect off Tinder altogether. If you don't no longer need the lesson, then that person falls away.
Oh, well, listen, I'm so enjoying this. I really am. What would you think are your current super, super strong passions? What is it that's really getting you excited at the moment?
What lights me up at the moment is teaching others and seeing them light up. So that's my passion. It's not about sort of, changing the world 1 million people at a time. It's about helping people wake up and seeing them go, oh, and it's almost like seeing that aha moment. You go, oh. It's exciting. And I enjoy, like you were saying, a lot of people don't know lots of these words, don't understand them. And this is basically what my book's about. It's about looking at these things. I've been meditating on this. I've been given channeled work on this about, all right, some of the topics are judgment, trust, just little things about, all right, what is trust? How do you get trust? What are some activities that will help you build trust? What's, an affirmation I can say to sort of, and the book is basically just a compilation of all of the things I've picked up over the years. They said to me, stop getting new modalities. You've got enough. Use what you've got and put it into a format where people can understand it. So that's my passion at the moment, is making it so people can look at these little areas and just get an aha moment and next step up, giving them some power back to change things.
Okay, so if I had to say to you, if you've got a class of 20 people right now in front of you, and you could share some very important tools in that toolbox that would be simple for them to make a difference in their lives, what would you say? What would you share?
So 2 big areas, I would say breathe. It's the one thing that people forget. The breath drops you back into the heart. So if you can get out of the head, use the breath and drop back into the heart, and then you can go within. So breath would be one important area.
But before you go to the next one,
yep,
let's do the breath right now. Right. What do you do?
All right. So breathing in through the nose, because the nose filters the air. It also gives you a nice deep breath. So you want to breathe down into the diaphragm. So shallow breaths are not going to sort of be something that builds the energy. So we breathe in through the nose, expanding the chest, and then hold it, and then breathing out through the nose again. So you can close your eyes. You can do it with the eyes open. 3 breaths I recommend. So let's do 2 more. So breathing in, expand out, and breathing out through the nose, and just draw that belly back in. So we're emptying those lungs out. And then the 3rd breath, breathing in. And this time, exhale through the mouth. Now, just breathing alone gets you out of that fight or flight. It takes 90 seconds for adrenaline to run through the system if you stop the thought that's getting it going. So if you can use those breaths to get out of that emotional state, get out of the head, and drop you back into your heart, and just imagine almost like a waterfall, or just that energy shifting down into the heart. And it's almost as if there's a weight just lifted. It's almost a nice relaxed state where you've changed the chemical composition of your body. You've gone into rest and digest. You've gone into that ability to function, not from that instant reaction. You've gone into the ability to respond instead of reacting. So breath would be number 1. Always think of the breath. It gives you a chance to let the words that have been said to you dissipate, and then you can respond rather than sort of having that emotional grip on you and you go bleh with your reaction with that instant. So breath is number 1. The second thing would be ask questions. So as soon as you start asking questions, you go within. So an easy top of my list would be, what do I know about this that I didn't know I knew? So you're now asking for your own knowing. So, well, I obviously must know something about this. What do I know? And just wait. You're not going to get a whole big long conversation. If you get a whole big long conversation, you've gone into the head and the ego. It'll only be a short word or a short little phrase. It'll be just very to the point. So, number 1 question. Another one, what else would be, was what else is possible that I haven't considered? So you've taken the blinkers where you've gone, right, I can only do A, and you've gone, oh, there's B and there's C and there's D. You've expanded what options you've got. So get out of the head, get into the heart, ask some questions. There are so many questions you could ask. Another one is, what is my ask? What am I asking for? Well, what do I want to happen? So pin down what you actually want to happen. And then what's stopping me? All right. Am I using excuses? Am I using a belief? What's the stopping point? And then what's my first step? So once you've sort of gone, oh, all right, well, I want to lose weight. All right. So what's stopping me? I come from a heavy family. Everyone's fat in my family. Well, that's an excuse. So what's my first step? All right, I need to change my belief, or I need to not bypass the kitchen, or I need to, there's so many options. But if you sort of stop, step down and go, all right, well, what am I asking for? Rather than, oh, I want this, I want that. What do you really want? Distill it down. What's stopping you? And what's the first step? It's an action plan then. You've literally got, rather than, oh, I want to do this, but what do I do about it? All right, well, you've given yourself a first step. You can then move forward with it. Something else would be, am I in allowance or judgment? So someone says something to you, and instead of you going, your automatic response, breathe. Oh, okay, I'm coming from judgment instead of allowance. And so the answer might change to, oh, if that's what you think you need to say, then fine. Or if that's what you need to do, then that's your choice. But, allowance of judgment, shift out of that 3D and shift into sort of that higher energy going, it's not my choice. It's not my decision to judge them. It's not my position to sort of say whether they're right or wrong. And we'll do one more. Who am I not trusting? If you're not trusting yourself, then that might be, all right, what do I know that I didn't think I knew? All right, so something comes up, and who am I not trusting? Oh, I've got that gut feeling that, that what they're saying is not quite right. So I'm not trusting myself to know. All right, so what do I know that I didn't know I knew? All right, so if you always come back to the question, you always shift to the inside instead of the outside. So are they a few questions that'll give you a few tools to run off with?
Oh, Rob, we could talk all day. We could absolutely talk all day. I just love it. Now, if people want to get hold of you, what services are you offering?
Okay, so at this stage, if they want to get hold of me, my email would be achoiceofbeing@gmail.com. I have also recently started up a YouTube channel, Conscious Beings, under my name, Robin Plim, where I will be posting little videos of the stuff that's going in the book. So things that they've told me, right, this is your topic, you need to get it up. That's where I'll be posting them. And I will be trying to get them out every Friday. So there will be a new one on the webpage, on the YouTube, every Friday, looking at different topics. Apart from that, I'm also on Facebook. So if people want to grab me there, they can grab me there. But the easiest way is probably email me. So I do sessions, I do talks. If I have enough people interested, I'm more than happy to get a Zoom together and we can do a session on something. I will be posting up some meditations for kids too. I think that they definitely could do with some extra meditations, and I'm sure the parents would enjoy doing those as well. So yes.
Fabulous.
Well, watch this space. More's going to be happening. So
do you have a name for your book yet?
Conscious Being.
Oh, very good. Just Conscious Being.
Just Conscious Being, yeah.
And do you know when it's going to be published? How far away are you?
I'm about halfway through it at the moment. I've got about 30 topics already up, but I'm not quite sure how many more they want me to put in. So, but when I sort of know more about the end date, I will put something up on that YouTube channel. So if people want to subscribe or put something there, then I will put a video out or something when I'm closer to having it actually published.
I just think this is just so wonderful. So what would be the last message for humanity?
Trust. You need to trust yourself. And you need to trust that, that there's a bigger picture. By being in trust, you let go of judgment and blame. So everything's exactly as it should be.
Well, Rob, I think that we're going to have another chat one of these days because there's still so much to talk about. But I've just loved this conversation, and thank you. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Jill. You've asked some stellar questions. So thank you very much. I might even put up some of these channelings that I've got through from up on the YouTube as well. So who knows what else is going to go up on that site. So
just tell them again what it's called.
So Conscious Being, but it's under my name, Robyn Plim.
ROBYN.
NPLIM. And there's also the link on there to my email as well, achoiceofbeing@gmail.com.
Perfect. So thank you so much. And
thank you, Jill. You are an absolute stellar beacon.
And we're just having fun, girls, just having fun.
And, you are such an awesome personality. You are really a connector. And I must admit that I am very blessed to know you, and over the years of us touching base just in, general ways and pieces, you've always put me on a path that sort of, has led me to something else. So thank you for being who you are, you beautiful person, you.
The Mutual Admiration Society. As my friend said to me the other day, we are each other's best cheerleaders.
And that's exactly right, and if we raise each other up, imagine how high we could possibly go.
Yep, I think this is a year for raising up. This is now time.
Totally.
To go. On this Saturday, Alba and I have just finished this new hypnosis session called Disclosure. And that's actually what it's about. It's like...
Yeah, and it really feels like that. It feels like the energy is at that point where it's bubbling over,
It's exciting.
And it is. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And everyone who's on the earth at the moment is here for the show.
The greatest.
And whether that's to hold hands and lead people through it, or whether to, be someone who's leading the charge, or whatever it is, we are all here with a purpose. You just got to accept that, that you are not a small little something. As one of my messages said, stop being small. It's time to shine and step out of the shadows. So, yeah, totally.
Well, I think that's a good note to finish off. It's a course that I set up years ago, and it's called Your Time to Shine.
Exactly.
So start shining, guys.
Yep.
Carry on
Be
shining.
that little beacon of light.
Lots of love. Cheers,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you very much, Jill.
Pleasure.